Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Happy Monday, July 25th. Workplace Collaboration, Community of Practice SA. We've got a distinguished architect, Anson Garcia, who's going to take us through Microsoft Teams and 911 with the help of the illustrious Aaron Kent. With that, Anson, I will pass it to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Eva. Guys, thanks for joining today. I know there's not a lot of us. That's good. Um, as usual, for some reason, whenever I present for Eva, my week prior is super busy. And on the weekend, which I set aside Saturday to study and to make sure this was polished, I was working up on my wife's car at Sonic for about 7 hours. So that gives
No
me an
worries.
out. It gives me
You'll
an
be
out just in case this is a disaster. Okay, so look, I've put some videos together on Microsoft Teams. Hopefully, you guys have uh, seen those. Let me turn on my video here. Okay. Hopefully, you guys have seen those. Uh, there's one demystifying one. It's really good. I mean, it took me about 3 months of investigation. I mean, talking to industry people, visiting the PSAP locally. So it's a really good one, and I always go review that one before I do anything in 911 because it kind of refreshes my memory and all this research. So I really do advise that you take a look at that or keep it in your back pocket. So uh, Microsoft Teams and 911. I've done a couple of videos on this. I'm going to concentrate on all the stuff that I've done before, and then we're going to add one thing that was added last month. This nomadic user, in Carey's Law. Remember, there were some dates that we'll review in a minute on Carey's Law and Ray Bond's Act. But let's get started, and let's go to my first guy here. If I can get it to change. Okay, so this is one of my slides that I have in demystifying 911. It's a very good slide. So we're going to concentrate what's on the left here. And what's on the left here is the customer prem. All right. And then on the right is the ERS, right? That's Intrado or Red Sky or bandwidth.com or all these guys that do this stuff. Intrado, of course, being the biggest one. And then those guys are connected to the PSAPs, right? All over the country. About 2,500 of them last time I checked. And then in the PSAPs, right, we have these guys that are called, I don't know where my R is there. I just noticed my R is missing, but they're called telecommunicators. These are guys, I tell you what, I had no idea. I went and did a site visit and talked to the IT director at my local in Conroe here in Texas. And it was fascinating. I spent a whole day there just wandering around their little data center and talking to these telecommunicators and dispatchers, and it was fascinating. And I put all that information in that one video. But we will go through a little scenario here on Microsoft Teams, and it's very high level. So this is 30,000 foot view. We are going to do some configuration. We're going to do demos of calling 911 with Microsoft Teams, both on-prem, off-prem, moving around in the enterprise. So stay tuned for that. That's pretty cool stuff. So we get to see some live stuff here in a minute. Okay, so on this slide, what I had going here is what I wanted to convey is what actually happens, again, a 30,000 foot view. Microsoft Teams has a MSAG. Let me see if I can get my pointer here instead of my pen. This MSAG, so it has a list server, right? The location information server, like CER, for us Cisco guys. And it's got its own MSAG, which checks, and verifies addresses and things like that. Okay, so one thing that the customer has to do once they get, calling plan, DR, operator connect, it doesn't matter. This stuff is going to all act and configure and be the same. The customer or somebody, a partner, somebody has to go enter you'll hear it called in Microsoft Teams or Microsoft Speak, the topology map. the network map. They'll talk about that in their documentation. And it just means that someone needs to go in and populate this list database. And basically, it's a civic address or emergency address, a place, what they call a place. This is, similar to your E911, where we extend the address a little further, floor one, north of building, whatever. And then there's all kind of ways we can do this, but we're going to do it as subnet. Most people do it by subnet, just like CER. You can do, with CDP, or of course with Microsoft Teams, it's LLDP. And then we have this emergency location. I don't know why I put this column here. Maybe I'll remember in a second, but this is the important part. Someone needs to populate this stuff, right? And we're basically saying, hey, in this subnet, if you're in this subnet, you're at this address on this floor. All right, nothing more than that. Okay, and you can see here, I got an address. These two rows right here, the same address, but different places. All right, we're actually going to do this one right here. Okay, so what else happens? Well, as soon as a Microsoft Teams client registers, and periodically, I couldn't find how periodically, if it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but as soon as it registers, and anytime there's a network change, there's going to be what they call a location request. And basically, it's asking Microsoft Teams, where am I? Based on this database that the admin created. So that's a location request. And again, what's going to come back is some information to the phone. And this is the list location info. Okay, so basically what's going to go to that guy is this right here. Now, how did he know? How did Microsoft Teams know where he was? Well, he registered, and with this location request came, hey, I'm on subnet 100 in this case. So that's how the Microsoft Teams location information services and the request or the response to that request is going to say, okay, I see you're coming from 100. You told me that, and I'm going to give you this address in this place. Okay. Again, for you guys, most of you guys are in the know on this stuff. For you guys that aren't, this is very different than Alley, PS Alley, E-Lens, things that we've done in the past. It's always been different. The phone never knows where it's at. It's when the call routes and the call ID, and either on E-Lan or some database, there's going to be some address connected to that. So what happens next if we dial 911? Here comes the call. It's a little red line right here. And along with that SIP invite, which we'll take a look at here in a second, is this information buried in the SDP. Right? In the SDP, there's a field in there with an XML tagged document. And it has PIDFlow information, and it has call ID, number, emergency location. There's the location because it knows where it's at, because Microsoft Teams told him where it's at. So he's got the information. Again, this is way different than what we've done in the past. This comes to a SBC, whether calling plan goes to an SBC, Operator Connect goes to an SBC, DR obviously goes to an SBC. Doesn't matter. It's going to go. There's going to be a SIP invite from the Microsoft realm to an SBC. And within that invite is this SDP with this information, and here it comes. And then there's going to be some routing decisions in the SBC. Obviously, we're not going to go over here to Verizon. We're going to go somewhere else. Now, in the case of Operator Connect and things like that, it's a little bit different, but it's always going to separate out somewhere along the way. And this SIP invite is then going to go to the ERS, right, out here to Entrado, bandwidth.com, Red Sky, whoever. Now, what happens here, all to the right of this, I go over in very detailed conversation and lecture on that other video, which I have linked on this presentation, which I'll share with you. Well, what happens here is this thing goes to what we call the voice positioning center. It's an entity, it's an element. And from there, it goes to the dynamic alley database. Now, why is this alley database dynamic? Is it because customers go in there and provision and can change and do a MACD? No, this is a different dynamic alley database. And this database is populated, if you can see here, here's the DID. Okay, that's normal. The address, well, that came with the SIP PITAFLOW stuff. Okay. And then the place, okay, we got that also in the SIP invite. And then we get this weird number over here called an emergency service query key. An SQ key is what they call it. You'll hear that acronym for short. And it's just a continuous bank of numbers that's given to an ERS is really what it is. It's a DID. I shouldn't say it's a DID number. It's a DN. It's a DN. But it's not dialable. It's not given to service providers. It's not anything like that. It's just a number. Okay? And that number, let's say the NPA NXX is kind of associated with Intrado, let's say. Okay, so this little number kind of identifies Intrado, but it's a number nonetheless. Once that SQ key gets inputted into this database, then what happens is we go to selective router database, right? This is kind of normal stuff. You guys should probably more experts than I am on this stuff. From the selective router, it goes back to the VPC. It goes, oh, I know, based on this address over here, I know what selective router to go. That's in Podunk, Texas, and I need to go out that selective router to get that particular PSAP. Well, here comes this call coming in, and the call has the SQ key. Now, when I first started reading about this, I said, oh, this is kind of a security thing or something like that, because they call it a key, and it's represented by a key in a lot of documents or diagrams. It's not a key. It's this number right there. So you might say, wait a minute, this guy where's the call ID? Because they need the call ID for callback and all that jazz, right? Because that's mandatory in the US anyway. So what happens here, remember this connection here on many PSAPs is analog. Could be PRI, could be just channelized T1, but they're ancient. A lot of them are still ancient. This next gen 911 stuff isn't happening anytime fast. So we got it. The lowest common denominator is to send a 10-digit number. We know how to do that on analog or digital. We can do that all day long, anywhere. So here comes this SQ key number, this number here, and then this is going to go immediately populate on the telecommunicator's desktop, right? And they have some soft phone things like that. It's going to pop up. There's a call coming in. Okay, immediately during this time, the CAD system, the computer-aided dispatch system, these are the systems that they have there on-prem, usually on-prem. Sometimes they have them co-located for a couple of PSAPs in a big county or something like that. But this CAD system then is going to go ask the regional alley database, right? The alley database, I need to put a number to an address. Well, the regional alley database doesn't know what the heck this number is that came in. So it certainly doesn't have any of this information. So what they do is there's a data connection to the ERS. It's different than the voice stuff that's right here. It's a data connection they got to Intrado, they got the Red Sky, they got the bandwidth.com. That's why I said those SQ key numbers are identified by ERS. So ERSs have a continuous bank of numbers, Intrado, Red Sky, whoever. So the PSAP, that regional alley database that's going to reach out, knows, hey, this SQ key belongs to Intrado. I need to go across this data connection and ask their VPC, because I need an address here and a callback number. Gets to the VPC is going to ask the dynamic alley database, hey, I got this SQ key number. Do you have a record for this? Well, let's check it out. Yes, we have a record, and this SQ key is associated with this record that was dynamically created just a few milliseconds ago. And voila, we're going to give that back to the regional alley database. Now it has an entry that's cached for, so I don't know how long, but it's cached for a little while. And then everything happens as normal with their legacy systems. The CAD system's going to look at the alley database and say, oh, okay, I got an address now. And voila, there's the address pops up on the telecommunicator screen. He's got the address, he's got the ANI, right? All this stuff came along this data connection here.
Hey, Anson, I got a quick question.
Yes, sir.
This is great information, by the way. Do you know if there's an RFC or a standard for this implementation, or is this something that was agreed upon for, kind of like a patch or a break fix in between the PSAPs until E911 is fully implemented?
Yeah, that's a great question. I wish I had a smart answer for that. I
That's
don't
fine.
know, Aaron. I don't know. My investigation didn't uncover any of that. Not that I went looking for an RFC or anything like that. So there very well could be.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely did a lot of investigation here, so this is good stuff. Thanks.
Okay. I think that's all we want to do there. Now you've got a kind of a 30,000-foot view of what happens over there in this dark space to the right. We're going to concentrate, on this stuff over here and how this works, how we can, make sure we adhere to 911 and E911 and Raybon and carries, and things like that. So let's continue on here, and I'm going to be referring to this slide quite a bit. This slide, or flavors of this slide, you will find all over Microsoft Dynamic Emergency Routing prezos. All right. Now, what I did, because I looked at it and sat in sessions multiple times, and I just didn't get it. So what I did is I put some color coding to it. I separated it out, and I think I have a good way to explain it. It's digestible, and it's in little pockets. You can delineate what is doing what. Usually Microsoft will put it in one big slide, and you'll have a bunch of stuff there, and they just go through it real quick, and you don't know what does what. So we're not only going to use this for explaining things, but we're going to use this to configure also our list service and our emergency policies and things like that. And just real quick, along the top here, these two boxes right here, trusted IPs and the location information services, basically has to do with what is the emergency address to pass to the PSAP. All right, that's what you got to remember. So when you ever look at a Microsoft slide, and they're all like this, you want to group these two at the very beginning together. What address are we going to pass to the PSAP? Now, to further delineate between these two, the first one, the trusted IP, is basically we're asking the question, am I on-prem or not? Okay, and we have to pass, I got a little hurdle guy here. We have to pass this hurdle. In other words, we have to be coming from a trusted IP, or you can say the outside interface of our internet routers. We have to be doing that to jump over to get to the next box. Okay, and then this is where we're going to do our emergency addresses. We're going to put in our emergency addresses, 123 Elm Street and whatever, and then we're going to associate those addresses. In most cases, most people are doing it by subnet. Like I said, it's like CER. You can do, LLDP and things like that on ports and switches, and you get it down to the MAC level and all that stuff. I'm sure some people do it just to, we engineers sometimes make things hard just for the sake of making things hard. But most people are doing it by subnet because that's easy. And then we're asking the question here, where am I based on my list database? So I can send the right address to the PSAP. Okay, and then over here on the right, we can pretty much say this is location stuff on this side. And over here on the right here, we got what do we do when 911 is called? And where do we route? All right, so what do we do when 911 is called? Well, we know Ray Bonds says, hey, you got to notify somebody, right? And you got to have a dispatchable location and all this stuff that does over here, but we got to notify, we got to do something, notify somebody. And that's where these emergency policies come into play. So you'll hear language like emergency addresses in Microsoft TeamSpeak, and you'll hear verbiage like emergency calling policies. If the word policy comes up, you know that's, oh, what do I do after the 911 call is finished? After when it's going on, what do I do? So that should clue you in, the policies. What do I do? And then anything that says emergency address, that should tell you, oh, I got to find out what the address is somehow. All right. And then all this together, Microsoft calls dynamic emergency calling. Okay. So let's go through this first policy right here. This is emergency call policy. And what are we trying to answer here? What do we do when someone dials 911? Like contact the security desk. Okay, this is emergency call policy. And then we punch out these other things. It's in a different section in Microsoft Admin Portal. It's, I'm sure there's a reason for it, but we're going to be jumping around a lot, and it just kind of, it always makes sense to me to come back here and see how things kind of lay out for my brain, visually. We do this network topology thing, and then the network topology, in our case here, we make it simple. We're going to do some network sites, and those network sites, we're going to put subnets in. All right, we're going to put subnets in so we can attach this network topology, and that's why I have these two little lines here, to the emergency calling policy. So how can I say that different? If you're in a certain network site, subnet, go do whatever I tell you to do in this policy, which may be call a PSTN number, conference someone in, pop up on give a chat to a group in a channel in Microsoft Teams, whatever. Okay? We'll talk about the call routing piece in a minute. But that's a way to kind of think of it. Now, you may say to yourself, as I did, wait a minute, why is there subnets here and there's subnets over here? Are they the same? No, they're not. Why have this box? This has nothing to do with this. So separate them in your mind. Yes, you will have to go configure subnets here. Let's say you have a location 192.168.100.0, and you're doing your list service. And then you want to, notify somebody, the security guard. You're going to have to go punch out a network site, and you're going to have to go input 192.168.100.0 here also. And then attach this network topology to the call policy, or the emergency call policy, for this to work. Okay, confused me for a long time why these two were there. Okay, let's take a look at our lab here, what we're going to do.
Hey, Anson, before you move on, there's one question that came up in the chat. It asks about differentiators. Does Verizon have a differentiated advantage with OC, Operator Connect, I presume, current or planned, over other providers, telco, ISPs, or not?
Yeah, this is Aaron. I asked that question. If you go back to slide 3.
I'm glad Eunice is here because that's a marketing question.
Yeah, no, maybe it's a technical question or something we could highlight in RFIs or RFPs, but I'm thinking when we create those routing policies, there's possibly a differentiated advantage we have over others. Just thinking.
I don't know. Eunice, you want to take a crack at that? Or if there's anyone, Ben or...
Yeah, so when you say when we create the call routing policy, that wouldn't be different depending on the provider. The only differentiator is who is creating it. If we have a service wrapper around Operator Connect or Direct Routing where we're the one creating the policies for the customer versus if they have to go out and create everything by themselves.
Well, that's exactly what I was getting at, because we always talk about shifting blame, right? But you can blame Verizon for that, right? A lot of people are wary about implementing 9 because they think if they implement, enhanced 911 or things like this, then they're culpable, right? So I think it's a differentiator that we could, possibly sneak into an RFP or something. I'll shut up now.
Yeah, so definitely under Verizon, call it with Microsoft Teams. That's something we do with the customer. Or other services like Operator Connect, we don't have that today. That's in discussion at the moment. But that service wrapper, you could potentially sell PS as an NRC to do that for the customer.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Eunice.
And just to kind of drive home real quick, this calling policy, this routing policy over here is different than the normal routing policy because these policies are emergency calling policies. In other words, you can say, if someone in this group dials 911, go out this SBC in the West Coast. And if someone in this group dials 911, go out this SBC that's on the East Coast. So they're a little bit kind of separated from your normal routing, PSTN usages, and things like that that you do in Microsoft Teams to create your routes. But they're the same. I mean, very similar. Okay, I want to bring this up real quick, and I'm running out of time here, but I want to show you this. Again, I try to make things simple for me to understand just in case I ever have a conversation, and I want to give you guys this because you guys are on the front lines, and you got to have things. I know you guys don't do this all the time, and it'll be a month, and then someone wants to talk about 911, So these couple of slides here, I think, are going to help you and spark a memory for what everything we talked about here. Carey's Law. So here's just a little quick blurb. What Carey's Law needs to do, right? Ray-Bonds Act. Okay, so 911 is dialed, what was given to the PSAP. We're going to see this stuff. And this is in your emergency policies, right? So if someone starts talking Carey's Law, oh, okay, yeah, we do that in emergency policies in Microsoft Teams. If you're talking Ray-Bonds Act, provide dispatchable location, that's your list service. Okay, and you see I have these kind of color-coded because they refer right back to the different sections over here. Right? Blue, yellow, purple. Okay? So if you ever print these out, you can kind of look at them, put things together. All righty. So let's get into the lab here. Let's see what we're going to do. Right. Okay, we're going to be dealing with a couple of PCs here. We got Anson, so you'll see over here on the left-hand side, this is Anson's PC right here. Maybe I'll put this like that. Okay, we have Thomas Payne over here. And then we're going to have, I got this up. This one I'm going to be moving around the network, so I'm going to go in with VMware, vCenter. Let's see if I can get this guy out of the way. We want this guy over there. Right. And we're going to be dealing with Alex. So there's little Alex there. And I'm going to be going down here to go to different sections. And we're going to go here. This is our presentation. We're going to go here. That's going to be Anson and Thomas Payne. And then we're going to go to Alex's PC as well. And then we'll be referring back to this drawing too. So the first thing we want to do is do our list service, right? This guy right here, trusted IPs and list services. All right, let's go look at our drawing. Again, I want to give you some visuals because it always makes sense to look at things, in my opinion. So I have my E911 design here, let's call it. And if we look at this box right here, okay, this is the box. This is our list service, our emergency addresses, places, and things like that. And I just did this in my own home here. I got the house and I got my shop. All right. And I have a network in the shop that's 100.0. And I have a network at the house. It's 101.0. All right. VLAN here, VLAN there. There's my two internet routers. And then you can see this one's 172.32, 48.58. And then we have another guy over here. We'll talk about him in a minute. The first thing we're going to do is let's put Alex in the shop. Okay. Let's connect his network cable over here to 100.1. Okay. My address here is, I call it the homestead, and it's 41111 North Mill Drive. But I have two places on my property. Right? This could be 2 floors on a building, doesn't matter. I got a place call it shop office, and there's my IP address or my subnet, and there's my place house, and it's 101. Okay, simple. So let's move Alex over there to the shop office on 101. He'll grab his PC here. Oops, that's not his PC. See where it went. Where did it go? There it is. All righty, and what we're going to do is we're going to go over here. I wasn't set up for the presentation yet. We're going to go to his network adapter, and this is just vCenter, VMware stuff, and we can move things around, what we call a distributed switch. And remember, it's 100. So that 100, I just named that VLAN 100 because it's the 192.168.100.0. So we're going to put him on that VLAN. I'm going to say OK there, and then we'll go over here. We'll make sure that we get the right IP address. All right, we're on 100, so we're good. So we've just connected Alex to the shop. Next thing we're going to do is go look at our drawing. What happened, remember from our little diagram before, as soon as Alex registered, it went and told Microsoft, hey, where am I? And Microsoft is going to give him the address in place based on subnet. All right, let's go see how to configure that. And if we look at our, right here, trusted IPs, and that's in locations, network topology, and then we're going to go to locations, emergency address. So you can even configure, with this one little slide, you can go configure this stuff. So first, let's go put our trusted IPs, locations, network topology. All right, going to go to Anson. Anson's the admin. Going to go down here and find locations. There's locations, network topology. All right, and remember I had trusted IPs next. So we're going to click on that. And there's our trusted IPs, 32 and 58, remember? Those are the two. And if we wanted to add another one, it's no big deal. You add it, you put there, you can put a mask also there if you're going to break that into 2 subnets, or do whatever you want here. Give it a description. Okay, so let's take a look at these. All right, there you go. Okay, just want you to see them. That's the trusted IPs. All that I'm doing there is saying if your source address when you register is 32 or 58, you're inside the enterprise, obviously, because that's your source address, right? We're natting everything. So that's what Microsoft Teams will see when Alex registers. And what did I say what happens when they register? They ask for, where am I? So how do we do that? Go look at our locations, emergency addresses, and places. Okay? Locations, emergency addresses, and places. Well, let's go back to Anson. Locations, emergency addresses, and here we are. Remember I called mine the homestead? If we wanted to do a new one, we just add a new one here, give it a name, country, region, and this is what it looks like. Okay, it's going to ask for an address. It's going to do the MSAG thing first. And when we're in here, we're going to go put 2 subnets. Excuse me. I take that back. We're going to do 2 places. So here are the 2 places, right? Remember in our drawing we have 2 places. We have this place, the house place, and we have the shop place. So I punched out, I just added, when I'm in this emergency address, I'm adding a couple of places here, and there's my house place. If I go in the house place, in the house place, I can put subnets in here. Similarly, if I go back and go to the shop place or shop office place, go subnet. There's my subnet right there. All right, that's how I'm assigning the address and place to Alex. So if we go and make an emergency call right now, as far as the list service is concerned, what should show up is this address with this place, shop office. All right, let's see if that works. Here's Alex. We can do a test, and the test number is 933, and basically it goes to a Microsoft bot that just tells you what's in PIDFlow. So let's do a 933. I'm going to call, and I'm going to end this pretty quick because I just want you to see one thing. Bingo. There's our number that went to the PSAP or in PIDFlow and shop office. Yep. And then there's the address. Okay. I got a couple other things set up. That's why this phone's ringing over here. Okay. We'll leave that. So I'm going to stop there real quick. That's it. That's how you do the list service part of 911 services in part of dynamic emergency calling in Microsoft Teams. Any questions on that? Okay, good.
Good so far.
All right. Let's move Alex. Let's move him over here. And we should get the same address, but a different place, right? House. So let's go over to his workstation here. There. And we're going to go to his VM. We're going to move him over. Remember the subnet was 101? So I named that the same on my in my distributed switch in VMware. Okay, I'm going to go. I want you to watch over here. Okay, I didn't point out this before, but Microsoft Teams kind of shows you now. This is what's new last month. Kind of shows you where you're at. Shows you the address. All right, going to move. What happens as soon as it changes network? It's going to go request to Microsoft, hey, my network changed. Where am I? All right, I didn't see what I wanted to there. Let's make sure we moved over. We didn't move over. I had this problem before. Let's kick it one more time. A little bug. Little bug. Select the same thing again. Do okay. Look right here. Not going to cooperate with me, huh? All right, we'll kick it again.
Try release for new. See if it.
Well, it should automatically. It's not. I want to do that, and then I'm going to change it again. It's kind of staying on that other. See that? You see a change?
Yeah, nice.
All right, it's in house now. So I'm in a different, and this could be a completely different address. I'm just having the same address with a different place, floor 142, whatever. So obviously, if we make a call here, again, you're going to see the address has changed, or the place. There it is. House. All right, that's what goes to the PSAP. There's the number that goes to PSAP. You see, it's different now. You don't hear these phones ringing in the background and stuff like that. That's what we're going to do next. All right. So let's go on. And do you want to talk anything about here? I think that's it. Okay. Let's do one more thing. Let's move him way out to the internet. I have a VLAN 20 somewhere here, there. And let's watch again. Keep your eye over here. Bingo. Location not detected. So it registered Microsoft Teams, said, hey, where am I? There's nothing in the list database, right? We have our list database here. These two things, that's the only things we have in there. So obviously it's not here. And obviously it didn't come from any of these IP addresses. So remember, we had to do the hurdle. So we didn't pass this. So it never went to try to figure out where he was at. All right. And there's some defaults that happen here, and that's why I have on the drawing something else, but we won't go through that. But we're going to dive more into this because this has to do with Kerry's Law and Raybon's Act. You've got to provision for those nomadic users. They got to be able to put an address in. And real quick, I'm going to just go off there and show you guys that right now.
You have a 15-minute mark.
All right. Well, that's no good. You guys need to listen a lot faster than you are. Tape up. Okay. I'm going to go out and remember on our drawing, we have a VLAN out here that's just connected to the internet. So let's do that. At settings. I'm going to go out to the internet real quick. Oh, I already did that. Sorry. What was I doing here? I lost myself.
You wanted to show what happened when you dialed to see if it would populate an address.
Oh, no. Oh, yes. It won't populate an address. So this is a scenario where we go to the ECRC, right? It's going to show our number, and someone's going to answer. Hey, ECRC, it's Entrado. What's your first thing out of their mouth? What's your location? However, there's a setting I haven't showed you yet, and I'll show you in a minute. But you see this here? I can add an address right here. And this is like the admin adding an address. It's going to go against the MSAG. It's going to make sure it's a valid address, and it's going to say OK. And then this is the address that will be sent to the PSAP. Now, if you do your own address, right, and it's verified against the MSAG in Microsoft Teams, it will go directly to the PSAP. It's going to not, it's going to pass go. It's going to pass the ECRC. I just want to make that clear there. When you're in a known, you're in the network, go back in the network, hop on VLAN 100. Now we're in the shop. Watch it change. There it changed again. Look here. I can't do anything. Can't change it. Okay, I'm in the enterprise, and I fell within the list database, and the way the admin has it configured is, if I know where you're at, I know where my subnets are, and I'm not going to let anybody change it. Right? There's a way to let people change it, but it's not recommended if you have a good network topology, network map. Okay, let's go on to some policies. Emergency call policy, notify and bridge someone in, blah, blah, blah. Okay, where do we do that? Where do we do these policies here? What do we do after we call 911? Well, we go to voice emergency policies. All right, before we go there, I want to show you Now, don't pay attention to this box here where we have the list service stuff. Pay attention to these two boxes. And these two boxes are my emergency calling. I have emergency calling here. You can barely see that one, and here my network topology. So we're going to go do that. And you can see I just named it US, the network regions, US South. I named it Anson Office. And remember, I put a subnet in it. I have to put another subnet because it's different than the subnets that we did in the list service. And then we're going to go do an emergency policy. And then we're going to tell the emergency policy what to do when 911, and we're going to attach the emergency policy to the calling policy or the network topology. Okay, we'll do the same thing over here. So what do I got happening in the emergency policy? Well, in this one, if you're in the shop, you're going to notify and conference in Thomas Payne. And you're also going to notify this building landlord at that number. Okay, let's go see what that looks like. We're going to go to Voice Emergency Policies. All right, go to Anson. Voice Emergency Policies. And I have a call policy house and a call policy office. Very simple. Let's take a look at this one. I just have a description there. I have, here's one little drop down. I'll show you what's there. Send notification only, conference in but muted, conference in and unmuted. So we're going to conference someone into the 911 call, is what we're saying here. Whenever someone dials 911 call, that falls within the topology that we're going to attach to this. And then here's the number to call as well, the building landlord. And then here's the notification group. Now we're talking about teams now. You can put a group, you can put a person. Maybe you have an EMS team in your building, several volunteers or something. You put them in a group. It can be a Teams group. It can be an AD group. Doesn't matter. Okay, so let's test this out. Go over to and we're going to real quick notify here and notify dial out. Let me grab my phone. Here's the landlord's phone. And go over and dial 933.
I think you're still in the shop.
Oh, am I? No, there it is. Okay, here we go. There's the landlord. Landlord's going to answer. He's conference in but muted. And then, excuse me, this is the notify, and this one's conferenced in. Excuse me, I said that wrong. This one's just notified. Sorry, not conferenced in, just notified. And I hear here, someone dialed 911, and I'm giving the address, and the location and the place. Okay, let's go over to, remember we had Thomas Payne that was supposed to be notified. And look at there. Thomas Payne was going to be, remember, conferenced in? I waited too long. Yeah, there it goes. It went in. Okay, so we're conference in, but muted. That's what we chose. Alex is there, talking to 911 operator. And then this other guy is here also, this guy. I guess it did conference him in. I thought it wouldn't. All right. We want to end this from Alex. Okay, I got 7 minutes. Oh, man. What can I end on here? We didn't do the network sites. Let's go do that real quick and see how we attach it to the policy. Locations, network topology. All right, we go to Anson. We're going to go over to locations, network topology. Remember, this is different than the list stuff. And here I have named it the same, Anson House, Anson Office, right? You're my network sites. And if I go to Office, let's see here. And then this is right there. This is where I attach my calling policy. So I'm just gluing the two together there. And I have a subnet here. So if you're in this subnet, basically go do this emergency calling policy, which is the one that, remember, anytime you hear policy, it's what do we do after someone dials 911? Okay, hopefully that's clear to you guys. The other thing I have, because I have to do the very end here, so I'm going to show you a video real quick because I want to show you the mobile experience. This is the new stuff. Okay, so here's the new stuff. Hopefully you guys can see this okay, and I'm going to go over a document also at the very end just to point out some things here. So here we go. I did this yesterday. This is Alex on his mobile outside the network, so we're outside the trusted IPs and things like that. Let's see what happens. Tell me if this comes across okay, guys. Okay, so this is what happens.
It's faint.
Can you hear that?
It's very
low.
quiet.
It's low?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah,
There's a checkbox when you share your screen in BlueJeans to select it to be a video clip, and it'll play your computer audio.
Very good. Very good, Cheyenne. Thanks for that reminder. Right here, right? And then I'm going to do this. And then we're going to do this. Okay. I'm registering. I'm bringing up the phone right here. Okay, so this is what happens when you're remote. So right when you click on your phone, down at the lower right there, you're going to get this message right here, this dialog. So you can allow access or not allow access, and it's asking for location information. Let's see what happens here. I'll click allow, and then we're going to allow while using the app. Okay, there we are. Okay, now what it did is did a location request, and it got some information from the phone itself. So now I'm going to do a test. Okay, it did something different. I don't know if you caught that. When I said location request, I wasn't talking about location request to Teams. It already knows it's outside the trusted IPs. So what the client does is does a local location request to the phone itself. So there's some APIs, GPS APIs that are exposed. Let's continue. Call. And there we go. Okay, I did not provide any information to this phone in my location. It got it automatically. You can see there that my location is 49 Powell Circle, Montgomery, Texas 77316 US. So I'm sitting in my church parking lot right now. Yeah, so this thing works great. Okay, before I said it worked great, I didn't check the address. So that address was about 1,000 feet from where I was parked. Okay, so it's not exact. Where my church was, I was sitting in front of this fellowship hall, and in the back side of that fellowship hall, there's a community back there, and 49, what it was, Powell Circle or whatever, was actually one of the trailers that was back there, and not the one that was in the back closest to me, kind of in the middle of the road, in the middle of the block. So yeah, so it's not perfect, but it would go to the right PSAP, and it's doing a fairly good job, I would say. And, I'm out. Montgomery, Texas is population 1,500, right? So it's not like we have a lot of towers around there. That could have been, that should be taken into account. I'm saying it had the wrong address, but maybe in a more populated where it can do better triangulation or whatever, even with the towers. I don't know what it's doing in the background. I know there's an API there for the GPS. That's all I know. Okay, so let's look real quick. I have a few minutes. I want you to see here's a trace that I did with the Pitaflow. All right, so we're gonna look at the SDP. This is this thing you guys are familiar with. Here's the invite, blah blah blah. Here's SDP, right? There's all your SDP information, and look at this guy right here. Okay, we got some info there. Now I parsed that out, and so it's readable. I'm gonna go right here. I'm gonna go right here, and let's look at the parsed. You can see country. Here are the tags in the XML document. A1, that's state. A3 is obviously city. Road, West Cherrystone. Okay. HNO, house number, so on and so forth. NAM, that's company. PC, I guess it's postal code. ELIN, I didn't talk about ELINs, but you can do it the old way too with ELINs. Yeah, so I just wanted to see that. And then let's end here. Here's the documentation, and I just pointed out a few things here. To support these requirements, teams use the location service provided by the respective operating system. I couldn't get this to work, but apparently you can on your PC. If you're out and about on your PC at McDonald's or something, and you get the right location, it scrapes a location from your PC. It'll also provide it to the PC client as well. I tried it last month when all this stuff came out. It didn't work for me. I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm just saying last month it didn't work. And it was a modern laptop, a Surface Book Pro. Let me see if I want to point anything else out here. I know I had some other. Emergency routing policy applies to only direct routing. Okay, that's just the direct stuff. If you assign an emergency calling policy to a network, remember, anytime I say policy, what to do after the 911 call is done. To a network site and to a user, and if that user is not at a network site, the policy that's assigned to the network site overrides. We saw that, okay? I didn't show you, but the user, you can have an emergency calling policy too, on the user. And I wish I had time to show you, I can't show you, but it took the network policy and equated that, right, tied it back into the calling policy, and it did that, notify and, bridge in Thomas Paine. It didn't take what was on the user itself. So I didn't show you the user, but again, the user can have a calling emergency policy as well, but anything in your calling policies, calling emergency policy, going to override if you fit one of the criteria, subnet, if you fall into the subnet that you punched out in the network topology that's connected to that emergency calling policy. Gibberish, I know, might sound incoherent, but yeah, that is it, guys. For me, any questions?
Well, I think you did a great job showing the capability. A little feedback
Thank
there.
you. Thank you, Eva. Okay.
Any questions for Anson? I know some folks had to drop.
Oh.
It was the top of the hour.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions. Is there anything in there?
No, I think we hit them all.
Okay. Hey guys, I will. Eva's going to post this video, obviously, and then I'm gonna give you, Eva, if there's a way for this little diagram and the presentation. It always helps me. I forget this stuff, and then I go back and I just look at the diagram, and then I kind of remember this stuff. So hopefully you can keep it in your back pocket if you ever need to talk about this stuff, guys.
Yeah, I'll post it up with the replay, Anson. Thank you.
All righty. You guys have an awesome week.
You too, Anson. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.